President Buhari convenes meeting of heads of state and governments of the Lake Chad Basin Commission in Chad. Federal government reduces examination registration fee for JAMB NECO forms. In international news, Russia blockades 2 Ukrainian seaports, allows access to only ships moving toward Russian port. And in sports, North Africa wants AFCON 2019 withdrawn from Cameroon.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatuji. President Muhammadu Buhari has convened a meeting of heads of state and governments of the Lake Chad Basin Commission. Buhari convened the consultative meeting, which holds today in N'Djamena, the Chadian capital, in his capacity as the Commission's chairman. The one-day meeting was to review security situation in the areas affected by Boko Haram insurgency. It was also to adopt measures to enhance the capacity of the multinational joint task force to meet the challenges of securing the areas. Nigeria's Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, says the federal government's Empower Employment and Training Program provides a technology platform to boost education. Osinbajo stated this at the University of Ibadan, where he represented President Muhammadu Buhari as the visitor to the institution at the university's 2018 convocation and 70th Foundation Day ceremonies. Osinbajo said the current gap in education attainment in the country has made it clear that Nigeria has to change both the substance of education the children receive and the methods by which they are taught. The Vice President stressed that none of the world's leading universities depend wholly or even substantially on government funding, adding that all have evolved innovative financing and investment means to meet their funding needs and become financially sustainable. Senators appear to hold different positions on the alleged non-remittance of 177 billion naira operational surplus into the Consolidated Federation account by Nigerian Ports Authority. The disagreement came up when Senator Mohammed Hassan, a member of the Senate Committee on Marine Transport, which oversees NPA's operation, drew the attention of the Senate to the fact that the agency kept the money to itself.
There was 177 billion naira operating surplus that was recorded by Nigerian Ports Authority. Not a single dime was reported to have been remitted either to the Consolidated Revenue Fund or to the General Reserve Fund.
But Senate Deputy Majority Leader Bala Nahala said this was just an allegation by Senator Hassan and cautioned the Senate against relying on it. He said it would be premature to attach legislative seriousness to the allegation since the figures he quoted were not in the category of perceived, drive or accrued income.
Let us not be in a haste to determine this matter based on the figures bandied by my brother and friend, distinguished Senator Hassan. Thank you.
Members of the Kogi State House of Assembly are boycotting sit-ins in protest against alleged state government refusal to pay backlogs of their salaries and allowances. The House had adjourned plenary session 2 weeks ago and was expected to resume on Tuesday, but it did not hold. Many members are saying no money, no sitting. One of the lawmakers confirmed that the state government only paid 3/4 of their constituency allowance last year, and they had received no payment this year. He said the governor assured them before the state received the last Paris Club refund that it would be paid, but it failed to pay them when the money was received. Minister of Education Adamu Adamu has announced that the Federal Executive Council has reduced examination registration fees for the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, Senior Secondary and Basic Education Certificates. He said the JAMB fee for the UTME will be reduced by 2,000 naira to 3,500. The senior secondary school fee charged by NECO will shrink from 11,350 naira to 9,850 naira. And the basic education certificate by NECO will be chopped from 5,500 naira to 4,000 naira. The new charges will become effective in January next year, just about 4 weeks from now. He noted that JAMB is not a revenue-generating agency and it should not be consumed with generating funds.
We are able to see that most of what is being charged actually it doesn't have to be, because a lot of it is being siphoned by corrupt officials. So in answer to the yearnings by parents, the President directed that we should look into the possibility of reducing the charges.
The naira was stable at 364 naira per dollar in the parallel market yesterday, appreciating by 7 kobo in the investors and exporters window. There was an increase of 189% to $390 from $134 million in the volume of dollars traded on Tuesday. Indicative exchange rate for the window appreciated by 7 kobo to 364 naira 15 kobo per dollar yesterday. The Nigerian Communications Commission has ruled out the likelihood of issuing any other mobile license to another operator to serve the Nigerian market. The Commission said even if a new operator was desirable, there was no available frequency to be assigned. The Commission further explained that any new mobile operator licensed to serve the Nigerian market would be left stranded because all available frequencies had been allocated to mobile operators. Coming up, African stories. Cameroonian separatists risk death sentence following terrorism charges. And later, Russia blockades 2 Ukrainian seaports, allows access to only ships moving toward Russian ports.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In African stories, 10 Cameroonian separatist leaders extradited from Nigeria earlier this year will face trial next month on terrorism charges. One of their lawyers said after a court hearing on Tuesday, the charges would lead to death penalty. The trial is scheduled to begin next week. Accused include Julius Ayute, leader of an Anglophone separatist movement in Western Cameroon. The group is fighting to break away from the Francophone-dominated central government. The case is being tried at the military court in Yaoundé, where the accused separatist leaders face 10 charges that include terrorism, advocating terrorism, succession, civil war, and revolution. The separatist insurgency gained pace last year after a government crackdown on peaceful protests by Anglophones who complain of being marginalized by the French-speaking majority. A former president of Madagascar and the man who overthrew him in a coup will compete to become the island state's next leader in December after coming top in a first-round vote that knocked out the incumbent. The High Constitutional Court said on Wednesday former President Maharamani got 35.35% of the votes in the November first round, behind his successor, Andrew Rajoelina, who got 39.23%. Incumbent President Harry Rajao got just 8.82% and will not take part in the second round in December. The court has rejected his request to have the election cancelled. Madagascar is hoping for the second peaceful election since upheaval 9 years ago when Rajoelina was forced out of office by protests led by Rajoelina in what the African Union and other international organizations said was a coup. The court said total voter turnout was about 54% of registered voters. The recent discovery of ancient African ruins just south of Johannesburg may be pertinent evidence in the debate around land ownership in South Africa. Karim Sadri, an archaeologist at the University of Witwatersrand, recently found some remnants of stone walls in the Suikerbosrand Hills, a vast area in the south of Johannesburg, which laser technology has dated back to the 15th century. By the estimated timeline, the area was inhabited by the Bakwena people 200 years before the occupation of the first European settlers set foot in South Africa.
For Bakwena of Bamari Apohole, this means a lot to us. It's a huge finding, and more especially that it's a scientific find. It is history that lies in oral history. It's a story that is told by our grandparents. But now that the scholars and academics has come to the fore and put this vast information into evidence that can't be disputed by anyone.
Several other lost African cities.
The archaeologist says there may be several other lost African cities around Johannesburg still to be found. He says this could be very pivotal to the land debate. Ghana Minister of Information Kojo Obiang Nkrumah says the Ghana-Burkina Faso Railway Interconnectivity Project will commence next year. He says once completed, the rail line will link Ghana and Burkina and will facilitate trade and development. Nkrumah says a permanent joint committee of experts from both countries was established last year to facilitate the development of the rail line that would run from Tema Port to Ouagadougou, Burkina capital. The minister spoke about the rehabilitation of the country's rail system and also mentioned that a procurement process is ongoing to develop a new standard gauge line for the Eastern Railway line with a distance of about 340 kilometers. The African Development Bank has approved an 18 million euros loan to Cameroon to finance the construction of a ring road project in the northwest province of the country. The project aims to improve the movement of goods and people. It will also strengthen the foundations for strong and sustainable growth by promoting domestic and regional trade. The Loan Road is the bank's third facility for the 365-kilometer ring road network rehabilitation and upgrading project. The loop road crosses 5 of Cameroon's 7 divisions of the northwest region and includes several links to the Nigerian border. The project will also include institutional support for the transport sector and related works such as the development of rural roads, the rehabilitation of socio-economic infrastructure for improving women and youth living conditions. The African Development Bank has financed 28 transport sector projects in Cameroon since 1972. A UN study released on Tuesday says millions of poor urban children are more likely to die before their 5th birthday than those living in rural areas. It says this challenges popular assumption behind global urbanization trend. The United Nations Children Education Fund says not all children in cities benefit from the so-called urban advantage. That is the idea that higher incomes, better infrastructure, and proximity to services make for better lives. The report says although most urban children benefit from living in cities, more than 4 million globally were more likely to die before age 5 than their rural counterparts. The report also says more than 13 million were less likely to complete primary school. The UNICEF report also estimates that at least 1 billion persons globally live in slums, hundreds of millions of them children. UNICEF says the world became majority urban a decade ago, and 2/3 of the global population is expected to live in urban areas by 2050. When we return, international news. Russia blockades 2 Ukrainian seaports, allows access to only ships moving toward Russian ports. The latest sport, North Africa won AFCON 2019, withdrawn from Cameroon.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband.
Okay, hello baby. We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward. Wait, stop. You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down, keep walking to the left. Yes. You're almost here. Keep going. You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. On the international scene, Ukraine's infrastructure minister Volodymyr Omelyan has said on Thursday that Russia has blockaded two Azov seaports, Berdyansk and Mariupol. He said vessels are being barred from leaving and entering. Omelyan said on Facebook 35 vessels have been prevented from carrying out normal operations, and only vessels moving towards Russian ports on the Azov Sea are permitted entry. The minister said Russia's goal by blockading Ukrainian seaports is simply to drive the country out of its own territory. Most of the shipments to this port are grain and steel. Russia seized 3 Ukrainian naval ships and their crews on Sunday near the Crimean Peninsula, which Moscow annexed in 2014. It said the ships had illegally entered into Russian waters. Ukraine has strongly refuted that charge. The seizure of the Navy vessels drove tension to its highest since 2015, when Moscow-backed rebels rose against the Kiev government in the eastern Donbas region, sparkling a war that had killed tens of thousands. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said on Wednesday the world body is close to creating conditions for the start of peace talks in Sweden in December between Yemen's warring parties, but it says there was no agreement yet. The UN chief told reporters this is a very crucial moment in relation to Yemen. Guterres said UN envoy Martin Griffiths has been engaged in shuttle diplomacy, talking to Yemen's internationally recognized government backed by a Saudi-led coalition and Houthi Shiite rebels who control the capital Sana'a. The current diplomatic initiative is being driven by the increasing threat of famine in Yemen, but also by international outrage over the murder of US-based Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi last month in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. This incident has put a spotlight on Saudi Arabia's role in the country's war. The conflict in Yemen began with a 2014 takeover of the capital of Sana'a by the Iranian-backed Houthis, which toppled the government of Abed Rabah Mansur Hadi. The Saudi-led coalition has been fighting the Houthis since 2015. Chinese officials say they are hopeful that their planned meeting with American leaders at the G20 summit in Argentina would yield positive results in resolving a trade dispute with the United States. U.S. Presidents Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are due to hold trade talks on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Buenos Aires on Saturday. A Chinese spokesman, Gao Feng, says economic teams from both sides were in contact to implement a consensus reached by Trump and Xi in a phone call earlier this month. The United States has levied additional duties of between 10 and 25% on $250 billion of Chinese goods this year as punishment for what it calls China's unfair trade practices. The 10% tariffs are set to rise to 25% next year. Thousands of Central American migrants are digging in for the long haul at the filthy, overcrowded sports complex in sight of the United States, while a small number have opted to return home after clashes with border forces dimmed their hopes of crossing into the U.S. The beleaguered men, women and children of a caravan of mostly Hondurans began cramming into the complex in Tijuana about 3 weeks ago. They now number more than 6,000 in a space the city government first prepared for 2,000. 3 Tijuana city officials said the overcrowding has helped the spread of illness. They say there have been multiple cases of respiratory illnesses, lice, and chickenpox. Despite the difficult conditions, many seem determined to wait in Mexico for their chance to make their case to the United States. U.S. President Donald Trump threatened this week to permanently close the U.S.-Mexican border if Mexico does not deport the Central Americans gathered there. Video of a boy apparently choking and threatening to drown a smaller boy named Jamal has been viewed more than 11 million times and retweeted at least 100,000 times. Police say the incident in Huddersfield, England happened in October, but the footage began to circulate on Tuesday on social media. In the video, a boy in a blue sweater is seen calling out to another boy whom he addresses as Jamal. He then puts his hand around Jamal's throat, pushing him on the ground and pouring water into his mouth. The teenager is heard saying, "I'll drown here, I'll drown here." Jamal's family moved to England 2 years ago after fleeing Syria and living in Lebanon for several years. Police said in a statement on Wednesday that a 16-year-old boy in the video is expected to appear in youth court for an assault offense, but did not specify when. A GoFundMe created in Jamal's name has raised more than $120,000. Up next, sports. North Africa wants AFCON 2019 withdrawn from Cameroon. Details later.
You are watching ANN.
If you know fit go internet or follow for Twitter, you know fit snap photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no fit take selfie. Drop that Palasa phone. No be correct phone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it known for your hand, that's Palasa phone.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sports. The North African Football Union wants the Confederation of African Football, CAF, to move the hosting of the 2019 African Cup of Nations from Cameroon to Morocco. UNAF says Cameroon seems more than likely to withdraw, and the union is placing pressure on CAF to make sure that the first ever 24-team tournament is not held under difficult conditions or in half-finished stadiums. As a meeting of the CAF Executive Committee nears, where crucial decisions are respected, the region's football union supports the rescue mission envisaged by Morocco. CAF's President Ahmed has reportedly raised the possibility of holding the 2019 tournament in another country if Cameroon is not able to finish the preparatory work in time. Former Premier League soccer player Dixon Etuhu goes on trial in a Swedish court on Thursday to face a charge of match fixing, which he already denied. Etuhu played at the 2010 World Cup for Nigeria and had a lengthy career in England for Manchester City, Preston North End, Norwich, Sunderland, Fulham and Blackburn Rovers before moving to play in Sweden. He is charged with trying to bribe a goalkeeper to fix the result of a league match between his former side Tokstam Ake and IFK Gothenburg. The game was due to be played on May 18, 2017, but was postponed after goalkeeper Kenny told AIK he had been approached by Etuhu and another man with a view to fixing the game. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.